10 reasons why rent is so high in New York. The US Census Bureau announced that between 2020 and 2021, more than 30,000 people left New York City. Its figures show that Manhattan experienced a population decrease of 6.9% and Staten Island 0.5%. This population decline should, under normal circumstances, translate to the availability of more homes and, in effect, some reduction in rent. However, the housing situation in the city defies this principle. Rent is so high in New York and remains so despite the exodus. According to one real estate market report, the median rent in Manhattan, for example, inches toward a record $4,000. This video provides a balanced answer to the question in the mouth of many: why is rent so high in New York? 1. A national phenomenon. The first reason we find convenient is that increasing rent is not just New York's problem, it is happening everywhere. These types of scary statistics about the high cost of rent are often thrown about by disgruntled individuals who were forced out of the city. The fact is that for years now, rent has been skyrocketing in major urban centers. To buttress this, Realtor.com recently says between 2021 and 2022, Miami's rent soared by more than 37%. The hike is 23.9% in Orlando. It's higher in a more popular destination like California. Residents of even cities such as Austin and Phoenix are spending so much on rent because of an increase in demand. However, the case of New York City is on the table because analysts believe that more houses should have been made available since many people are now moving out of the city. 2. New York builds less. We're now coming down to one of the fundamental reasons. New York City builds less. One major reason it boasts the country's highest rents is that per capita, it builds less than almost any major city in the US. According to a report from New York City Comptroller Landlord, while rent prices rose 12.3% across the United States between 2021 and 2022, prices increased by 19% in New York City during the period. But why is New York building less than others? It is unique among large liberal states. Municipal governments are given total leeway to dictate what kind of housing they prohibit or allow. Upon examination of land use regulations, it was discovered that in areas with convenient access to transit and sewage infrastructure, the building of various types of multifamily housing is restricted. 3. Poor performance of the suburbs. Like other cities, New York relies on its suburbs to provide a cushion that would ease the strain on its housing market. Thus, the city doesn't feel that construction has to take place in the main city. The city with the country's most extensive public transportation system has the right to expect its suburbs to be well positioned to provide roomier, lower-cost housing options, allowing New Yorkers to easily commute to work in the metropolis. Unfortunately, these suburbs are not rising to the challenge at all. New York suburbs Long Island, Hudson Valley and Westchester are among suburban areas building houses at the lowest rates in the country. This fuels high rents and home prices across that region. Imagine, New York suburbs issued only 70,000 housing permits between 2010 and 2021. That's a rate of 13 for every 1,000 residents. 4. Household formation. Household formation isn't helping the matter at all. Remember that the figure being considered in the determination of the numerator in the city's rental market is that of households, not people. Yet in New York City, the rental market is unusual, categorized by a rare degree of cohabitation between unrelated adults. This can also be one effect of the high cost of housing. The stock is poorly matched to New York's demographics. You could find that those shared quarters are a mere rite of passage, products of romance, a crucible of hustle, and the arts. Though they are a simple way to get by, some consider them an ideal long-term setup. When people break up with their partners or become fed up with their roommates, change is inevitable, and this results in an increase in the number of bidders for the same number of apartments. 5. Changed work location. Every setup is embracing remote work more than ever. That's an obvious reason when New Yorkers desire to have more rooms. Many of them have turned their homes into offices. Various surveys show that New York's business districts have some of the lowest office occupancy rates. Meanwhile, vacant offices are not so quick and not so cheap to be converted into housing. However, it's so easy and so fast to convert a second bedroom into an office. 6. Seasonal apartments. This gives volume to the discussion of pied-à-terre, historically a red herring in New York City housing discussion. If you're considering the number of people who could leave New York City without creating a glut of open apartments, you need to realize that a tiny fraction of the city's housing stock is seasonal apartments. Statistics say that some high-income households are hanging onto their homes in the city even though they're buying farms upstate, according to the census. New York's Housing and Vacancy Report indicates that in 2017, some 248,000 housing units were vacant yet unavailable for rent, while in 2021 the number has risen to 353,000. Besides all that are apartments whose occupants were temporarily away. Now, don't be taken by the figures of those moving out of New York. Their homes aren't on the market. 7. Destination New York. A big factor is a destination New York City. The city has a great number of corporate headquarters. This implies that it's becoming more and more of a consumption city. Besides, New York City is the capital of American arts and culture, the United States' largest dating pool, a huge tourist attraction, and by far the easiest place to live without a car in the country. Therefore, for every family vacating their high-priced apartments for a suburb, there were young professionals earning huge pay, ready to take advantage of their remote work and live in the big city. Thus, those houses are for the most part not vacant. An example of this is news in the New York Times saying that Zillow Group, the real estate website, announced in June 2020 that employees could move to live and work from anywhere in the country without ever having to return to an office. As a result, more than 300 of them are in New York City. 8. Payback time for landlords. One of the often overlooked reasons for high rent is the peculiarity of the city during the pandemic. New York City used to be mobile on May 1st when everyone in the city would move. Everything dealt a blow to the tradition during the COVID pandemic. In the spring of 2020, the rental market did not fare well. Tenants for once got into a strong negotiating position. This negatively affected the market for realtors and landlords. The year 2022 was the revenge time for landlords. No sooner than pandemic deals expire than those business antics reappeared on the market. The landlords started cashing in once-in-a-lifetime bargains. This will keep rent high for a while as there is no regulation in sight that can stem the tide. 9. Inaccurate census data. Is it possible that the figures relied upon to determine that more people are leaving New York City are skewed? What if the Census Bureau got it wrong? Of course, the Bureau's projection of a drop in New York City population is corroborated by other sources. At least a Brookings study showed home prices are increasing faster in suburban areas than in the city. The Cleveland Federal Reserve and IRS records also show some significant departures. Well, remember, it's an estimate. The last time the Bureau counted New Yorkers in the decennial census, their annual estimates were discovered to have underestimated the city's population by 550,000 over the previous decade. Now, the current population estimates for 2021 relied partly on the same 2010 data. 10. The position of the law. In 2019, the state legislature strengthened its rent stabilization laws. This action, according to the economists, while ensuring that rent control provides security for some, will only jack up the price of unregulated housing for others. Another example is the banning of the construction of new hotels. That has eventually manifested itself as a short-sighted move. The constant villain city's rental market will keep eating up apartments. Now that the tourists are back, they certainly need somewhere to sleep. Well, their accommodation may eventually be someplace New Yorkers might have lived. That will eventually drive up the rent in the city. Please, do you know other reasons why rent is so high in New York? Kindly share and let's learn from your opinion. Let this discussion continue through your comments. Thank you for watching this video. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell.